All righty. Happy Tuesday, Power Hitters, Solar family. Today's Tuesday, the 14th of September. Wow. Summer is almost over. We have a tax credit deadline coming up here to get people the tax credit if they want their systems installed this year. So a lot of things are going on, a lot of updates, a lot of exciting things with Power. We just closed a WeFunder, over $8 million. We got Inc. 61. Fastest nationwide growing solar company. And, Powur sold, I think, about 1,000 projects last month alone. So they're really rocking and rolling here. As always, we like to share some success stories. I'll share one success here. Charles Thompson, our field leader, corporate liaison, he really helped support this team and the company immensely. He got married on Saturday at the corporate headquarters in Carlsbad on the live virtual 360 stage to Evangeline, his wife, and they'll be getting away to Texas, I think, in a few days to enjoy a little vacation, a little getaway. So congratulations to Charles. Anyone else have a success story, a deal they closed, a lead they got, an ambassador, a new consultant joined that they'd like to share? Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
I was able to.
John. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys.
Sean, get it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was able to actually get a couple of deals back through the pipeline that previously credit failed with Sunlight and Good Leaps. So we got to give them pace. Not my favorite option, but it's still a good deal overall. So pretty happy to get the two back on board.
Very good. Awesome, Sean. So yeah, I remember we talked about that. The credit fails, you explored the pace, and it's called home run, right? Pace financing?
Home run financing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Cynthia and I did a pace deal, and every now and then if you explain it correctly, it makes sense. I've done two myself as well, so. Good job. The more you fill the pipeline and you can circle back with leads and help people, the easier I think this gets over time. Larsen, Texas, what you got?
Well, just following up on the conversation that you and Chris had last week, just started recruiting, and I've already got two reps signed up underneath me. So I'm going to start some training with them. But yeah, man, just got a new mentor deal sent over to me this morning as well. So things are kind of starting to kick. I think that the fall is going to be a pretty good time for this as we push forward in recruiting to get people really started for the following year. So I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Very cool, Larsen. Were those prior consultants you worked with, salespeople, solar pros? Did you send them a video?
Well, videos, and then also one of them is a friend of mine who actually works currently for Freedom Solar Direct, but he's moving on. And then he's also going to bring with him 2 or 3 people from his office after he's up and running and gotten through his mentorship.
Wow. Very, very cool.
Yep.
Congrats, my
When
friend.
I showed him what his commissions were versus what ours were, it wasn't a big, I didn't have to sell it really very, very much after that.
Yeah, that'll do it. Good job. One more, someone like to share?
I can share, Jonathan.
Please.
So I have been focusing on growing my organization, and I focus on realtors because I have a real estate background, and I'm starting to see a lot of traction with that. I have 2 realtors that are consultants on my team. One, I'm working on his 4th deal. The other one, he just put his 3rd deal in. All of them have closed that they've brought me. And I just signed on another realtor partner who referred me to her ADT guy. And he's going to sign up himself. He'll be doing that on Friday and then signing up his team members under it. And so my plan of action, my course of attack has been working and focusing on, speaking of realtors and adding those realtor partners to the platform.
Boom, money. That's awesome, Marisa. Yeah, I think that's the coolest thing about Power. Like, obviously they could be ambassadors and that's fine, but if you can get them to join as consultants and you find that entrepreneur, that hustler, that side income, that killer realtor. I mean, Cynthia and I have a realtor that closed 6 deals in 2 to 3 months, I think. Sierra, and then she's already brought people under her. And if you're the mentor, you're helping that whole funnel. You're helping that whole team. And that's where it gets really, really interesting. So,
and the lead to close rates with real estate clients is so good. Like you said, you've closed most of them because the clients really trust them in their opinion. So they're a great target to go for consultants for sure.
yeah, I love it. Love
Speaking
it.
of realtors, I have my first close meeting today at 2:00 with Ian and a realtor.
Very good, Larry. Nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys will crush it. Is it PG&E territory?
Yep.
That's a no-brainer up there.
Yeah.
Well, very cool, everyone. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to a good friend of mine, a sister that I never had, known each other for 10, 15 years, and I've kind of followed each other at different companies. So Cynthia Alvidrez had the idea of this training, going through a few states and dropping some key facts and things to know and introducing a few leaders on the team. So it's fantastic. I think we're going to need a version 2.0 and 3.0 of this. So Cynthia, thank you for your leadership, bringing this together, being a rock star. Let me go ahead and make sure you can share your screen.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, so we have California, Florida, Texas, and Arizona that we're going to cover, and they're just going to be really general need to know and pro tips in each state. And hopefully on the next one, we can get Connecticut and Jersey and a few other states in here, the Carolinas. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to go over California first, since that is pretty straightforward, and then we'll have Robert Hollis go after. All right, so there are three main utilities that cover 80% of California, and that is PG&E, or Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, SCE, and SDG&E. So these are the three main ones. And the net metering and pre and post solar is very similar with all the three big utilities in California. So the pre-solar rates average 20 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So California has some of the highest rates per kilowatt hour price in the entire nation. So when homeowners are making a switch to solar, they are generally seeing a savings, even with discounted plans now. We do have discounts that are available on utility bills, and those include like low income and medical baselines. And now we're still seeing that those are higher now pre-solar. So you are able to still yield a savings for those homeowners. When you go solar with any of these utilities, there is an interconnection fee, and it ranges from $75 to $130 to $145. So with Southern California Edison, it's $75 for the interconnection fee. PG&E is $145, and SDG&E is $132. And when homeowners go solar in any of these utilities, they have to be switched to a time of use plan. So they require all homeowners to be switched to this post solar. And when you're on time of use at peak times, which are like 5 to 8 p.m. or 4 to 9 p.m., depending on the plan that they choose, that peak rate is going to be higher than what they would have normally paid pre-solar. So that's very important to know, because if you don't structure a solar plan correctly for the homeowner, they can potentially be paying more for their solar if we don't give them enough panels, if we don't have southern or western facing panels on the roof, and if they don't have the correct setup and enough extra offset to offset the change in kilowatt hours. All three of these utilities also have NBCs, which are non-bypassable charges. So homeowners are charged monthly to cover low-income customer assistance, funding energy efficiency programs, etc. So on average, these are going to be 2 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So for every kilowatt hour, 2 to 3 cents is charged to the homeowner per month. So for example, if your homeowner is consuming 100 kilowatt hours in excess, they're going to be charged that by 2 to 3 cents extra. So if you have more electricity, if you have a homeowner in California that has a larger solar system and there's more electricity flowing through the net metering, they are going to have a larger non-bypassable charge. So those homeowners might be paying non-bypassable charges of $40 to $60 a month, where you have homeowners with smaller systems that might be paying about $15 to $20 a month, maybe as low as $10 a month. So that is what's different in California. When you switch someone over to solar, that's very important to know that the non-bypassable charges are going to vary depending on the extra energy that's being used and the electricity that's flowing through their system. All of these utilities include an annual true-up, so they do allow for net consumption, any overages in solar, and if they are pulling more electricity from Edison, these will roll over as charges or credits month to month, and they're trued up on a 12-month basis. So not on the calendar year, but every 12 months. And at the end of the true-up period, at the payout, they are paid at a very low wholesale rate. So at the end of the year, if your homeowner has excess kilowatt hours and they have 2,000 kilowatt hours, they're not going to be paid at the rate they would have paid for it. They are going to be paid at a very low wholesale rate, which is 2 to 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's really important to know. That is pretty standard with all three of these utilities. And this is also why we want to give them enough solar so that it offset time of use costs. But you also don't want to size a system that's 200% if there's no reason to do so. If they're getting an electric car or a pool, then that's a great reason to oversize a solar system in California. Otherwise, it might not be good at all to oversize the system, because at the very end, if they have too many kilowatt hours left at their true-up period, they're not going to be getting a good value for it. They're only getting 2 to 4 cents for that. They can. Yes.
Your quick question. Right now, I'm currently sizing at 110. Would you say that's a safe margin?
In California, generally our rule of thumb is about 120, and it's so relative to the homeowner, because 10% on a 10 kilowatt system is a lot, where 10% on a 7 kilowatt system is nothing. So it just depends on system size, but a good rule of thumb for California is actually around 120, just because they're going to go from paying today's price in California, which is an average of 25 cents per kilowatt hour, to they're going to be switched to a time of use plan where at peak time, they might be paying, and I'll show you on this slide. So this is a pre-solar rate in California. And this is a Southern California Edison pre-solar example. Right now, homeowners are paying on a tier basis. So maybe the first week or two, they're paying 24 cents per kilowatt hour. Then as they use more electricity, they're paying 30 cents per kilowatt hour. The third and highest tier is 38 cents. Most homeowners are averaging right now about 28 cents per kilowatt hour. That's what they're averaging. But when they go solar, they'll be switched to this time of use plan automatically, the 4 to 9 plan, where from 4 to 9 p.m., they're going to be paying 44 cents for their electricity. So they're going to be consuming from 6 to 9 p.m., for example, extra electricity, or they'll be consuming extra electricity at 44 cents during that time, where normally they would have paid 25 cents. So you have to kind of offset that a little bit. For those of us in California, we like going about 120%, that's safe, but 20% on a 10 to 15 kilowatt system is a lot. So I don't think it's as necessary with larger systems, but you kind of have to see on a case-by-case scenario. And then you also have to consider that most homeowners will use more solar when they go solar. So usually 10% is just enough to cover what they would normally use a little bit more of, not so much going to give you extra in California electricity. So California is a great market for batteries. When you have a battery, you get to be on this post time of use rate, where at nighttime, you can see from 9 p.m. to 8, this is a special rate for homeowners that choose to get a battery or who have an electric vehicle. They can send solar to the grid, their excess solar at 45 cents. And at night, they're pulling back at 18 cents at night. So this allows them to send their solar at 45 cents. And then at night, when their solar is not working, and they use up what's in their battery, whatever excess they're pulling will be at 18 cents because they elected to get a battery or because they have an electric vehicle. If they don't have a battery, they'll be on this time of use plan once they go solar, where their excess solar will be credited at 44 cents. And then at night, they're pulling at 27 cents. So they're still making a little bit of a profit here in their kilowatt hours, but most homeowners are using electricity between 6 and 9. So they are going to consume a good amount at the high peak where they would have not usually paid that pre-solar. So that's just something to know, that 10% isn't really extra in California electricity. 10 to 20% is just enough to cover the difference that they would have paid pre-solar to post-solar. Panel positioning is key in California. The longer you can keep them from paying 6 to 9, that's important. So they need every last bit of sun possible. So always try to get some panels on the west side if you can. And 5 things to know about selling solar in California. This is the last slide for me. First thing is that you do have to have a California license through CSLB. It's called an in-home person sales license in order for you to sell solar in California. All solar customers that are shopping for solar will have to get the CPUC guide. They'll have to sign this 30-page or so shopping guide that says, shop around, get 3 quotes, ask your contractor these questions. So they have to sign that before they sign a contract at all. And for Powur, that'll be automatically worked into our paperwork. So if you haven't sold in California before, that is something that you need to know. That is something that I would review before sending to the homeowner so you know what's in there, because we usually get a lot of questions on that. And then we covered the large 3 utilities in California, but there are over 40 electric companies in California, and many of them are much lower in cost per kilowatt hour. These 3 big utilities I shared with you are very high in kilowatt hour price, but we do have some smaller utilities that are priced between 10 to 15 cents. And those include like Azusa Pacific, there's Colton, Riverside Public Utilities. There are so many little ones. And then you might also have smaller energy suppliers like Clean Power Alliance that actually work in conjunction with Edison and are kind of disguised in their billing. So you have to really be careful, because if they have Edison and Clean Power Alliance, then Clean Power Alliance does not allow for net metering. So they're going to have to pay whatever generation they have every month. Now, the good news about someone like Clean Power Alliance is they can opt out of that and just be solely with Edison. So there are little tricks like that that a California mentor will know that you might not catch when you're looking at a California bill initially. The great thing about California solar, though, is that we have constant rate increases here. Right now, due to wildfires in our investor-owned utilities and the grid maintenance from all the wildfires, transformers blowing up, you name it, we have constant rate increases here, and the prices just keep going up and up. So, Jonathan, do you have anything else to add for California before I hand it over to Robert?
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. And just, to back up a bit, if you're newer here and this is a lot of information, don't worry about it. Work with your mentor like Cynthia. They'll explain this all, like Owen. And this is just some high level information, details, and fact, which is great content. The only thing I was going to add is in Solo, we did recently ask them to take into account for non-bypassable charges. So even if you're at 117% offset, you're still going to see a $17 or $19 minimum connection bill. And I really like to hone in on that. Newer reps might say, oh yeah, it's 2 to 12. That's net metering 1.0. Right now we're on net metering 2.0. I've seen my clients have a $23 to $29 minimum connection fee every month because of those NBCs, those non-bypassable charges. So Solo did get a little bit better at reflecting that just this last week. But no, I think everything's great. We have an Edison increase in October, 9%. California is pretty much a slam dunk. The prices are insane here, guys. So you got to really sell here as soon as possible. The only last thing I'll say is, net metering 2.0 is good now, but next year at some point, net metering 3.0 is going to get passed and the fees are going up and the buybacks are going down. So really emphasize, if you sign up now, you can lock in net metering 2.0 for about 20 to 25 years grandfathered in.
One last thing for those of you that are in the California market, I'm not sure if you got the email from Southern California Edison, but they said that everyone will now be switched automatically as of this December to time of use. Officially, this has been coming for years. They're going to switch you. They're going to switch you. So they are officially now going to switch you to time of use. So now your kilowatt hour rates are going to be somewhere between 38 cents to 50 cents, depending on the time of year, which is insane, you guys. It's going to be so good for solar. So I'll go ahead and pass this on to Robert so he can go over his first slide. Take it away, Robert.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Wow, how to follow Cynthia. This is going to be a hard one right here. But great information, Cynthia. I'm going to go more just kind of on the simpler side of things. And if you can, we shouldn't have talked about this. Can you just start on the APS one? Because I just want to go through that one real quick with people. APS is actually really, really simple. It's pretty similar to some of the other people that you'll hear today. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sorry about that. Robert, unmute yourself real quick.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, got it. So yeah, so I'm just going to be really simple with APS. I know that just like you guys talked about, the rate changes are happening again. I've heard a bunch of different information from other people, but they did send out a letter to the customers. Last time they sent out a letter to the customers, they actually raised the rates by 12%. So just keep that in mind. But with APS, it's honestly really simple. I just try to keep it really simple with customers. Obviously, there's a lot of like smaller details that Cynthia went in, but I always try to keep it simple, especially when I'm just trying to mentor somebody. But I'm going to go through this part first really fast because I want to get to SRP. I have nothing but constant questions about SRP. And I know we're not open in all 50 states, but for the states that we're open in now, SRP is by far the most difficult to work with. Well, you can go back up to that one real quick, sorry. So real quick, average is about 16 cents a kilowatt. The buyback is 10 cents. And a grid fee is 12 cents or $12 a month. So that's a connection fee. No matter what, they're always going to have to pay that for the first fiscal year. Okay. So similar to California, we always like to do a 120 to 125% offset. And once again, it really just depends on the size of the home. Why we do this is a couple reasons. One is, you know, to offset the difference of the 16 versus 10%. It is a little bit bigger from my understanding from a lot of different electrical companies. And the really cool thing with APS as well is after the first fiscal year, they can actually use their credits to pay for their connection fee. I have done a lot of deals in APS. It is by far, with my experience, one of the easiest things for easiest companies I've ever worked with. And the cool thing with them is, you know, same thing that Cynthia said. You know, you'll run into a lot of people that, you know, in my opinion, the market with APS, especially here in Arizona, is really, really aggressive. And a lot of people have been taken advantage of. Because with their bills, and I just wanted to show you guys this, because I actually have copies of some of my customers that are getting -$30, -$71 bills. And what people will tell them is, oh, you know, we're going to do this big 150, or I've even seen people try to sell as high as 180, because I think that's the maximum, because you're going to make money off of APS. When's the last time they owed you money? That is completely false. You will get in trouble for that. You will upset the customer for that, because same thing that Cynthia talked about is, yeah, you can buy it back in the form of a credit at 10 cents, but I've heard horror stories where people have at the end of the year credits of, $500, $600, $1,000, and they go to cash out, which APS, it is true, you can cash out at, I think it's I think it's changed, but it's 1.2 cents. So you think you got $1,000 in credits and then you get $100 and you're way overpaying for a system. So the only, pro tip that I would say with APS is, and as soon as I get the letter, I used to walk around when we door knocked with that letter when it comes out showing that they're raising the rates by 12%, just like Jonathan said, that people are kind of tired of that. And I always lean on that. It's, oh my gosh, they're raising the rates again. Yeah, and what are you going to do about it? Well, I guess nothing. Well, that's why I'm here. So, and the only other thing, obviously 16 is, if you average it out, it comes out to 16, which is a little bit lower than some other places. But you also have to understand here in Arizona that we're using a lot more electricity. I've seen big homes in California that, don't even have AC units because they're down in OC, right? So here it's not uncommon. I just did a proposal the other day for a gentleman that he only had him and his wife and a newborn baby, and they were using 28,000 kilowatt hours a year because yeah, it's crazy because it's right now, it's, almost the end of summer and it's 110 degrees outside. That AC unit does never, ever stop. So, it's not surprising to see people with summer bills out here of $600 plus in the summer. So the only thing that I would be weary of, the two things is, one is APS is very, very aggressive. So, obviously your margins will be a little bit smaller compared to places like California. It kind of compensates because they're using a lot more electricity, but just don't get too greedy in APS with your margins because it's very likely within the next couple of weeks, somebody's going to knock on their door. And, if they're going to come in at a lower price because you got a little greedy with your margins, that's the quickest way you can lose a deal with APS. So I would really, really watch out for that one out here. The other one too is just the size of the system. I've ran into a couple problems where you do have to switch to LGs, which really eats into our margin because, hey, they're in a small home, but they're using 20,000 kilowatt hours a year and you just can't fit the panels up there. So, just be aware of those things out here. And so that's about it. I wanted to keep that basic and, keep under time. So let's go to the second page, my cheat sheet. So this is going to be difficult. And guys, I'll just be honest with you. This is SRP training is at least a 30-minute training. SRP, you really, really got to know your stuff with SRP. There's a lot of people that won't even touch SRP. If you're out here and if you've ever been in the Valley, what we call it, or Maricopa County, you go to the west side of the Valley and it's, maybe 1 out of 10 homes have solar. People are really pushing aggressively for it out here. You come to the east side of the Valley, in my neighborhood, I started door knocking in my own neighborhood because in my whole community, only 2 people had solar. And it's because SRP made it so difficult for people to go solar. So just like in California that you guys have mandates, I've heard a lot of rumors that Arizona will probably be next. Reason why is just like Texas with all the blackouts they've had. Maricopa County right now is the fastest growing county in the country. It is not a matter of if, but when we start to experience blackouts, just like California has rolling blackouts and eventually bad like Texas. So right now for both APS and SRP, anybody that goes solar gets $1,000 tax credit. And they're just setting people up that, look, we're going to start moving forward. And the state really pushed SRP to say, look, you got to come up with a new rate plan to make it make sense for people to go solar. So real quick, I'm just going to present this to you guys like a homeowner so you guys can get this, understand it, it makes sense to you. Anybody that wants to reach out to me for a little bit more information, feel free. You can reach out to me on Facebook. I'll put my information in here. So real quick, looking at the rate plans here, 90+% of everybody's on this Easy 3 plan, which means you're paying 35 cents a kilowatt on peak, 8 cents off peak. Okay. If you switch to the new E27 program, you go from 35 cents to 5 and from 8 to 4. What's the catch? Every time I show that to people, it's like, come on, too good to be true. This is specifically for homeowners that have renewable resources, AKA solar. We're not putting a wind plant in their backyard. So they have to go solar to switch over to this E27 program. Okay. So that's kind of even how I lead with people. This is a little cheat sheet. I can send it to everybody. I used to give this just to door knockers so they had something in their hand. I know it's a lot of information for people, but this is what I use in the home to explain, look, now it makes sense for people in SRP to go solar. Okay. So if you go to that last page, so the next step that I do is really sit down with the homeowner. And the thing that you want to understand with SRP is you only want to do a 70% offset. Okay, reason being is if they can now buy their power at off peak at a 3 cents, it just makes sense for the homeowner. Not only does it make sense for the homeowner, but they have a thing called a demand charge, okay, which I'll get into a second. It's a thing that SRP slipped in there to still bypass and get their money. So this is exactly how I explain it to a homeowner. So if you're using 17,300 kilowatt hours a year, if we can get 70% of that from solar, that means you're producing 12,110. And the remaining from SRP you're going to buy is 5,190. So if we look at what your new SRP is going to be, so if you take that 5,190 times 5 cents, why did I do 5 cents? Well, obviously the 5 cents is on peak hours. I always like to under promise, over deliver. So obviously most of the power they're going to be buying is going to be on off peak. But if we set up the numbers higher and it comes in lower, then you have a happy customer. Okay. So if we take that times 5 cents, that equals $260 a year. And now your new SRP bill is going to be $21 a month. Average. Okay. Once again, this is throughout the year. Obviously, in the summer, you might have $50 bills. In the winter, you might have $10 bills, okay? So if we take the 180 minus the 21, that's $165 a month in savings. And I always tell the customer, look, if we can get solar on your roof for cheaper than 165, is there any reason you wouldn't move forward? Also, SRP is a little weird with their connection fees. I've seen $22, I've seen $32. It really depends on the city that they're in, okay? Pluses with SRP is there's a couple cities in our couple areas in Mesa. There's a couple areas in Gilbert that do not even require a permit. So I've actually in the past have deals that are gone up on the roof within 3 weeks. Even starting in my own neighborhood, it feels like SRP is really trying to work with customers. The first family we helped go solar, it took 8 weeks. The second one took 6. And I just found out the last deal, that's my next door neighbor down here, the permit got approved in 2 weeks. So they are really trying to work with the homeowners. So the only really gotcha, I don't know how much more time, so I know it's supposed to be 5 to 7 minutes here. I don't know if I should get into the demand charge real quick, just to kind of explain it to people, Cynthia.
Yeah, 1 more minute would be good.
Okay, so I have a video which I can send everybody. It's a 1-minute video, but really what it all explains is the demand charge, and how they explain a demand charge is this. Look, if I jumped in the car right now and drove to California and I put it on cruise control at 65, great. I'm going to go, I don't know how many miles is it, 800 miles. Okay. if I jump in a race car and I'm driving 180 miles an hour all the way to California, look, I still went 800 miles. The difference is I probably used 1 tank of gas doing 65, and I used 3 tanks of gas doing 185. Okay, that's the way SRP explains it, which up for debate, but okay, whatever, we'll take their word for it. So basically from the times of 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock, that is the typical, which is the on peak and off peak for them, which you can actually call them. If somebody works from home, you can switch the times up from them. But if what they hit is a demand charge, which that's kind of on them. And I can show people all the technical stuff with it. But in other words, most people in SRP are already kind of trained, because you saw the difference. There's a huge difference of 32 cents versus 8 cents, right? So most people are trained like my wife. We're unfortunately renting right now. We don't have solar, but first thing in the morning, she starts the dishes and everything gets shut off at 1. After 8 o'clock is when the dishwasher comes on, the laundry machine comes on, so on and so forth. So most people are conditioned to not use too much power within that window, okay? If you hit the demand charge, it's really based on the maximum that you did. You're going to get a fee for that month, okay? So this could be a fee of anywhere from $10. I've seen fees as high as $80. That's even, guys, even if you had solar at 120%, that's where people get so upset. You're supposed to cover all my solar, and then the sun went down in the winter at 6, but still here in October, it's still 90 degrees out. The AC's running, you turn on the washing machine, the dishwasher, turn on both of the televisions, and then all of a sudden you get a demand charge of $50, even though you're paying for 120% offset on your roof. See, that's where people get in trouble. So there's really 3 ways to manage a demand charge. One is be a responsible adult. Okay, because you really only have to worry about it in the 3-4 months of summer, because the AC unit in Arizona does not shut off for about 4 months straight. So in those 4 months, just like my wife, if you can understand that, don't run the laundry machine, the dishwasher, all your appliances between the times of 1 and 8, you're going to be fine. The second one is what they call as a load controller. Okay, a load controller, it actually attaches to the main panel, and when you get to a demand charge, it will shut off your appliances. Because you're not a responsible adult, it'll shut it off. Okay, the next one is a battery. Now, batteries can work with SRP, and if it's set up properly. Most of our installers, which I know quite a few of them, I've worked with them in the past, they understand how to set up a battery properly, which is almost acting like a load controller. What it's going to do is it's not necessarily, trying to get you past, to have a $0 bill. What it's trying to do is when you hit that demand, it's going to start pulling extra power from the battery. Once again, it really depends on the house. Jonathan, did you want to add anything? I saw you doing thumbs up there.
No, it's all great information. SRP, APS. Just 2 quick questions on APS. The $12 minimum connection fee, is that for all size systems?
Pretty much. It's just a standard connection fee. I know it can go up from different, but even all my copies of bills, I highlight it for people. I said 12, but it's $10.23. So I just usually tell the customer it's 12 cents.
Okay, cool. And then I know sometimes an APS, like a fixed lease at 11 cents can be kind of popular. Do you see those out there? We could do that with Sonova, I believe.
I'll just speak on my own experience. I've just never really done much of leases, to be honest with you. I always see the value of the customer owning something. So I'm not going to sit here and train or give advice on something that I really don't have experience on and haven't leaned on. So sorry, I can't answer that question.
No worries, Robert. We really appreciate your time. And man, we could have a whole nother training on Arizona. So
yeah. And I just kind of got into the whole SRP. I know I kind of went long there. I kind of warned Cynthia and I went fast, I know. So I guess in conclusion, guys, I lean at look, hey, be an educated or be a responsible adult. Because there's only two things that would happen is if you overbuild the system, or I joke around with customers is, hey, if you mess up and get a $60, $80 bill in the middle of summer, you're going to be mad at me. And every time they laugh at me. You kidding me? We're used to 500. If I get an $80 bill, whatever. So that's the way that I lean on. I know we don't deal much with load controllers and batteries. I know is the only solution for that, but some of the smaller homes, it just doesn't make sense financially. So
right on. Perfect,
that's
Robert.
my time. Thank you guys.
Appreciate you. We'll have your contact information shared here in a minute. Feel free to type any questions for him. We got two more states, guys. We have Texas and Florida. So we're going to go a little bit longer, and then we're going to have some announcements, but it'll be worth it. And Cynthia, who do we have next? Florida?
Yes. So we have Mike Patterson, and he'll be going over Florida for us. Thanks, Mike. Take it away.
Happy to be here. Great state of Florida, where it is hot as can be and 100% humidity always. So compared to what we just heard, our electricity here is dirt cheap, especially compared to you guys in California. 9 cents to 11 cents a kilowatt hour from the utility on the major utilities anyways. Even with that, we use so much power here. Our air conditioners run nonstop when it's hot, and then they still run nonstop when it's not hot because that's your heater. It just runs backwards basically. So people here use tons and tons and tons of power. So anybody usually with an electric bill of around 150, it's down to even like 130 now and up, we can still usually give them some savings to start with. It's going to be nothing night and day like out west, but it's something to start with, and it's insulating them from the huge utility increases. We're on our third year straight now of almost a 20% rate hike. They're blaming that on fuel costs. They're shutting down all the coal plants and they're building gas plants, and then they're shutting down the gas plants and building solar fields. And of course, TECO or FPL or Duke, they're not going to pay for that. They're going to pass it right on to you and then make a profit on it. Let me go back one more real quick. So if you've ever seen the news, we've got everybody and their cousin moving to Florida right now. So you've got tons and tons of subdivisions going up, huge houses, usually not much insulation, roofs that aren't the best for installing on. But you've got tons and tons of people to sell to. And on the brand new houses, that's your best bet. The biggest sale for me here is batteries. I sell batteries on almost every single system. Granted, I do work more with first responders than most people, and we're more concerned about backups, but our grid goes down constantly. It's unstable to begin with. Mix in a hurricane, mix in a thunderstorm, mix in all that overdevelopment of rural areas. 2 years ago, my house was a tomato field. Now it's a subdivision with thousands of houses. So they didn't build up the grid enough. They never seem to. We get 20, 30 outages a summer. I've had batteries on my house with my system, and I'm sitting there in 70 degrees air conditioned when all my neighbors are burning up. So batteries are huge here. That's if you walk in and you tell people you'll never lose power again, if it's sized properly, you have their interest. Now you just got to make it work. We can go next. So we've got two categories here. You got your major utilities, you got your minor utilities. The majors, that's your Tampa Electric, Duke, Florida Power and Light. Those are awesome because they're governed by a state law that passed a couple years ago on a voter referendum. They're actually required to do one-for-one net metering. They calculate it annually. That's the most important thing here, because in the spring is when everybody here makes all their power. It's sunny. That's our dry season. There's not many clouds. Your air conditioner actually takes a break for once. You build up a huge credit. I had 2,000 or 3,000 kilowatt hour credit on my account going into the summer this year. Come summer, we get thunderstorms every day. It's 98 degrees. It's 100% humidity. Your air conditioner never, ever shuts off. So even when you're making a lot of power in the morning, at 2 or 3 o'clock, the thunderstorm's rolling and you don't make anything hardly. So you're banking on those credits that you made in the spring, and then you're still ending up with your bill that's only a connection fee. So having that annual net metering is probably the most important thing that I look for in a bill. Also, the major companies have an 11.76 kilowatt tier 1-2 cutoff. We'll go over what that means in just a second. In addition to those, you've got tons and tons and tons of minor little utilities throughout the state. You've got anything that's the regional co-op with Lacucci, Peace River, Anything that's government owned, so some of the cities like to have their own utilities, they don't fall under that state law. So their net metering arrangements vary massively. Usually, it seems that they do monthly net metering. So in the spring, you build up a big credit, they're going to calculate the cash value of that and pay it out immediately. There's no carrying over of your credit, at least not as a kilowatt, from spring to summer. Problem with that is if you're buying electricity at 12 cents per kilowatt hour, they're going to pay you back at about 4 cents. So you built that huge credit in the spring, you make pennies on the dollar. Now summer comes and you're buying it back at the retail rate again. So it's a little more difficult to get the cost savings with these companies. Also, their tier 1, 2 cutoff, it varies, so make sure you check with each one. But they usually advertise it as 10 kilowatts. That's 10 kilowatts AC, which trips a lot of people up. That's the same thing as 11.76 DC. But just make sure you check with the company, especially when it's the little ones. Go on to the next slide, please. Some of the biggest hurdles selling here. I mentioned tier 1 and 2 systems. Tier 2 systems used to not be a big deal. They just require $1 million in personal liability protection. I can't emphasize enough, that is not solar specific insurance. It's just general liability insurance. So whether it's in your homeowner's insurance, whether it's an umbrella, or whether it's a standalone policy, you just need $1 million in personal liability protection. A year ago, that probably cost the average homeowner $150. About a month and a half ago, our insurance law changed, and now people are getting quoted $2,000 to $3,000. So lately, for the most part, I've been avoiding tier 2 systems. I'll look at their system, and if their ideal system would be 12, 13, even 14 kilowatts, they're probably better off getting as close as they can to 11.76 and then just paying a little bit of a difference. Anything 15 and over, now I'll start looking at their insurance specifics, have them get quotes from their insurance company. Sometimes, and I just had this yesterday, you meet somebody and they need a huge system and you find out that they actually already have an umbrella policy. That's pretty common here because we're the state full of lawyers. Everybody needs to have insurance because everyone sues everyone. You can't drive down the road here without seeing tons and tons of billboards of lawyers. If you do have to go tier 2, what I've found lately is USAA and State Farm seem to be the most reasonable. If they already have those, great. They tend to build it into their homeowners insurance. If they don't have them, those also are probably the 2 hardest companies to get homeowners insurance from. State Farm, if they have that for their auto insurance, they'll write them $1 million just standalone liability for their house, and it's about $150. So that is probably the best way to go. If none of those work out for them, have them call their homeowners insurance, have them call their auto insurance, just see how much the umbrella would cost. And if you really don't have any other options, reach out to me. I've been building a list of insurance contacts and trying to come up with what the best options are. But that's been our biggest hurdle. All of a sudden, just about a month ago, it came in. Besides that, you have to know if you go down in Miami-Dade area, so Miami-Dade County and the neighboring counties, they have a different hurricane code down there when it comes to wind restrictions. So out of the panels we have right now, only Mission 345s, Q-Cell 340s, and the LG 440s are allowed down there. Problem is, if you're doing a Sonova deal like we do a lot of here, none of those qualify. None of them are compatible with Sonova, so it becomes difficult. So, for what it's worth, we get the same hurricanes here in Tampa. The Panhandle probably gets the worst hurricanes because they go through the hot water in the Gulf and get stronger. We use the regular panels. We have no problems. It's just Miami's kind of the only part of the state that's a big government area with lots of restrictions. Also, if you work down there, be prepared. The project will take forever. You'll go in and out of permitting 3 or 4 times before they approve it. No matter what, they'll always come up with something. Speaking of the different areas, Miami's one of them, but Miami, Jacksonville, and anywhere in the Panhandle, you have to account for higher installation expenses. So on Solo, they call them travel adders. Long story short, those areas, it just costs more to get the deal installed. They have to pay the installers more. There's big backlogs. It costs more to do business there. If you don't do this, it's either going to come out of your margin or you're going to have to do a change order. So make sure if you're in those areas, and you can check the map, they just put it out on the Facebook page a week or 2 ago. Make sure that you're including those ahead of time because we all hate change orders. I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions. feel free to get in touch with me, or, Florida's a weird state to do business in, but I'm happy to help anybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. So far, this is so awesome. Thank you both. We're going to go ahead and give it to Larsen now and have him take over. So take it away, Larsen.
Well, hey guys, happy Tuesday. Man, I waited a long time for my turn here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Save the best for last. We can hear you.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, so just I want to break this down real quick of what I'm going to cover. I'm going to go a little bit faster probably than the previous ones here, because I want to stay a little bit simple. Out here in Texas, there's some major players. I'm going to go through that and kind of, why they are what they are. They have a lot of different solar markets here, so you can kind of pick and choose what you want to attack. There's a deregulated utilities. You can use what they offer to close more deals. And then of course, we'll cover just some buyback rates, the utility rebates and rollover credits at ETFs. And then actually, if you want to go ahead and go to that next slide. So basically the major players in the central Texas area, I'm not going to go through all of them because clearly we can't cover everything, but ERCOT is the company that oversees the Texas grid. About 60% is unregulated. Sorry, I'm dealing with a throat issue right now. Been dealing with it all day. So it's kind of messing with me. Yeah, so basically the major players are Encore, CenterPoint, Austin Energy, and CPS with PEC, which is Pertinalis. The best markets really is just depending on how you want to choose the battles. The deregulated markets install a lot faster. They'll allow for more line side taps, which will reduce the mandatory panel upgrades. So you'll tend to get paid a lot faster in that situation. Austin Energy has a $2,500 rebate as well as CPS. So it's nice to have those available. So it'll change up, your final numbers and monthly payments. But the resellers, let me go back here, guys. I can't see, Jonathan, your message came up in front of my screen. There's no rebates, but typically they're going to have a higher kilowatt hour price and early termination fees. So you can actually use those to your advantage to sell in those areas, even though you don't have rebates to work with. So I'm gonna move this over because I can't see. Buyback rates, rollover credits, y'all all dealt with those. Everything's a little bit different in every area in every state. Some of the better ones here are the Austin Energy, which is a true one-to-one with monthly rollover. CPS, that one's a little bit more difficult. They do have a true one-to-one, but when you get to any kind of overproduction, they'll only give you 0.16 cents. So that's not very attractive. So in that market, we're trying to size the system to no more than maybe 80%, somewhere in that range. Now, we have some resellers here that are pretty awesome. We have a Green Mountain Energy. So if you guys are trying to sell in an area where that's available, they're not available everywhere. They do have a 15.2% rate, which is one of the highest ones in the whole state, actually. Rhythm, which is down in Houston, 12.6 to 7, depending on a couple different rate plans. And then Reliant and TXU, they're going to have some different plans. They have about 5 different ones based on like the time of service plan that you want to put yourself on. So it's not really enough to put on here necessarily, be a little bit confusing. But those are kind of some samples of the better ones. So if you switch over to the next slide here, I'm going to show you something. Well, that's not it. Nope, next one. Nope, that's not me. The last slide that I sent you.
Sorry, guys, just one second.
Larsen, where are you at in Texas, by the way?
Well, I'm in Austin. I live in North Austin, but I am marketing to everywhere from Temple to Killeen, some in San Antonio.
Got it.
The thing is with Austin Energy is a huge market, but it's very saturated. The time of install, I've got some that are pushing 3.5 to 5 months for installs, but I've sold a few in Encore already, and we're getting those installed in about 45 to 60 days. So it's definitely a little bit little bit faster for sure. So really what I want to do is not get into too many specifics when we did this, because for a lot of the new people, you're just trying to learn what are some of the basics to cover, and what do I talk to a customer about? I mean, we can't sit there and debate every single buyback with a customer. You're just going to overload them with information. So typically some of the basic closes that you can do for utility objections would be, you live in an area with a poor buyback. Pardon me. Here, you got to know your market. So it's one of those things where take some time, study up on your information so you look like you know what you're doing. You don't want to have to sit there and say, oh, well, I'll get back to you or whatever. Have this information. In fact, right here, you have texaspowerguide.com. So you can have that saved, on your laptop or your iPad or whatever. You can always refer to that at any time. And it's going to give you a list of the resellers in the Encore. Well, actually it's not the entire state of Texas. I think it breaks it down by region, but you'll be able to look and see what your buyback is. You can always try to move and offer to help make the move for somebody. And then that's going to be one more little thing from the service that you can offer to help them out. So that goes to, oh, well, I have an early termination fee. So maybe I'm going to hold off. My contract is up in 6 months. Well, okay. What is that fee going to be? Maybe $250, $450, something like that. You're going to want to use that as a closing tool to say, well, hey, if we move forward tonight or whatever it is, I'll cover that. I'll cover that termination fee for you. We'll get you that directly rebated back. How do you feel about that, et cetera? What I hear a lot is, I want to shop utilities. What that is bad about here is everybody's getting very, very competitive when it comes to different solar programs, because it's a blowing up market. But also, everybody's trying to get these, 24-month or 12-month deals that are like stupid cheap. The problem is that when they come off of their plan, then of course the per kilowatt hour cost skyrockets. I've seen some 16, 18%. So in that situation, it's a common question is to ask somebody, well, you know what? I appreciate what you're saying. That's fair enough, whatever. If I give you a couple of weeks to do your research, will that be plenty of time? And of course, that's kind of taking that stress off of them. It's not like you're trying to close them. And then they say, well, yeah, that'd be fine. A couple of weeks would be more than enough. And you say, well, that's awesome. I mean, we're 45 to 60 days before installation anyway, so you can research to your heart's content, but doesn't need to mean we have to stop this process from getting started. And when you do your research, you choose what utility you want, and then I'll help you connect with them. The rebate question comes up a fair amount as well, because everybody hears in the area, Austin Energy has rebates and CPS has rebates, but then all the marketing that's out there and all of the BS Facebook ads that are like free solar and you have a tax credit and you have a utility credit and state or city government credits. Well, the fact is most of those don't exist, and we all know that. So if you're in an area that's no rebates, you really got to push of course the tax credit. But you also have to ask them just a simple question. I mean, when you signed up for your utility service, did you get a rebate? No, it didn't keep you from signing up for electricity. You just did it because you got to do it. So the fact that we don't have a rebate isn't really going to affect whether or not you're going to move forward with solar, nor did it affect the other 100 people in your neighborhood who have already gone solar. So Austin Energy, and there's a couple of other ones that are on tiered systems here, okay? The problem with tiered systems, especially in Austin Energy, it's a 5-tier system. So it is kind of difficult to show someone true and accurate numbers, because every time you make an offset, it's going to change what they're spending. So a lot of times it's confusing. And so they get to a point where they're like, well, Larsen, this sounds great, but I'm not really understanding what I'm really saving or what I'm really spending. Maybe, we'll pay attention for it, for a couple more months, blah, blah, blah. Well, what the comeback to that is always going to be, it doesn't matter. It really genuinely doesn't matter, because any production is going to bring you down to the lower tiers, and anything that you buy at a lower tier is going to be an advantage to them. So here, I don't have them all memorized, but it's tier 1, I think, is at 5.4 cents, and it goes up to like 7 point something, like 10, and then 12. Like, these are big numbers. So if you can show somebody, even on a low offset system on the tiered area, hey, so if we're only doing 40 or 50% offset, but now I'm bringing you down in the tier 2 and the tier 3, instead of you being up in the tier 4 and 5, then it makes sense. And then that's how you basically close that deal. Everyone knows what MPU is, I'm assuming at this point. Just means, you got to have a panel upgrade. Sometimes that can be in the way. Sometimes other reps have come in before you, other companies, and they've said, yeah, we're going to give you an electrical panel. Yeah, you can work that in. It's all about how you deliver it. But when you do talk to somebody about needing a panel upgrade, or that you're going to do the panel upgrade, you often will guess, oh, well, is that going to cost me more money? So the answer is, well, yeah, it is, but we're also taking care of two problems at once. I mean, clearly you got to get this done at some point. You have a 25-year-old panel out there. It's probably not the safest thing in the world. But two, if you ever want to do solar, you're going to have this work done anyways, whether it's 6 months from now or 2 years from now. And the only difference is that the prices are going up. So it's going to cost you more at the time. Permit fees are going up. Cost of components are going up. So what's the point of not doing it now and then rolling it into a 1.49 or whatever we're offering, 1.99 loan, versus you having to put that money out, in the long run by yourself. So those are just some of the basics that I kind of cover. Like I said, I'm fairly new with Powur. I was top sales rep with SunPro last year in the Central Texas region. So I wouldn't say I'm still learning Powur system. Jonathan and Chris and I have had many talks because there's a lot of things that are different about this company, but I found that I really like it. And I really enjoy the platform and understanding. Becoming a mentor was huge for me, so that I was able to help some people. And we're already got a couple of reps that are off and running. So it's exciting. I think that the Austin and San Antonio markets are hot right now, but they're saturated. So if you're one of those new people who wants to jump into it, maybe concentrate on the outskirts a little bit, where they're not getting door knocked 5 times a day. They're not getting, mass phone calls and things like that, maybe to get you started. And of course, if I can help in any way, feel free to, reach out to me and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Larsen. I like how we all said we were going to keep it simple, and then we all went for a really long time. There's a lot of information to know in each utility. So hopefully everyone watching picked up a few tidbits from each utility. So go ahead, Jonathan, end off the meeting. I think you have some announcements.
Perfect. Thanks, Cynthia, for really leading this and putting this together and getting some people together. Larsen in Texas, Robert Hollis in Arizona, Cynthia, obviously in California, and so many other leaders on here like Owen and PG&E, Jarrett McAllister. Shout out to Mike in Florida. So a lot of value and education. The pros are out there. If you want to sell in those states and you want to make 50% of something versus 0, you probably should work with a mentor that kicks ass. Always reach out to your leadership first. See if they have someone in mind. See if there's someone on your team. Reach out to your leadership. And obviously, we have a lot of pros on this team and in the platform as well. So I'm going to share a few last minute updates. And let's make sure to put your guys' contact info in here one more time. I think I saved it here. Bear with me. And feel free to maybe screenshot that chat box there. Let me see if I have it up too. So if anyone wants to take a quick screenshot of this, bust out your camera. I'll give you 1 minute. Again, Arizona, Robert Hollis, Cynthia in California, Florida, Mike Patterson's crushing it, and Larsen growing his business there in Texas. All right, for those of you watching the video as well, this is their contact information. And I just need to update Larsen's there as well. And that didn't help much. So we hope to do a Carolinas, North Carolina. We hope to do a New Jersey training pretty soon as well. I think, Cynthia, you said Connecticut? I can't even keep track. Connecticut or Maryland might be coming in the next 30 to 45 days as well, by the way. All right, some last announcements here, and we'll close out. There is a new homeowner slide deck. You can access this in the Powur University. And let me go ahead and put it in the chat. It's pretty cool. I encourage everyone to use a homeowner slide deck. Go ahead and customize it and use it while you're presenting, which is an amazing resource. Another big push till the end of the month really is the tax credit. If you want to ensure that your customers get their tax credit, get their system installed this year to qualify for the tax credit, usually the act of installation is the act that qualifies to get the tax credit for 2021. Really push on getting it signed up by October 1st. That's the guidance from Powur. If they don't get signed up by October 1st, especially if it's a big system or one of those tricky permits like you heard today, they may not get installed this year. So really push the next 2 weeks. If they want tax credit this year, they have to sign up in the next 2 weeks. All righty, so the sales contest ended 14 days ago. We had a bunch of people in the top 20, top 50 contest. We will hear the winners on Monday next week. On September 20th, I believe Jonathan Budd will be on stage announcing the winners. And I know we have tons of winners on here, so that'll be fun. Look forward to that. As always, there's ambassador resources. If you want to share some really cool videos, I'll put this one in here, the ambassador resources, as well as the Inc. 61 resources. So feel free to share all that content on social media, LinkedIn, email blasts, send it to your past customers, you know, anyone you're talking to. Really, those are amazing resources to share if you're wanting to grow your business. Some of you have seen this already. It's getting pretty good feedback. It's a 15-minute Powur Explain going in the chat. Literally explains our business in 15 minutes. Anyone interested in looking at Powur, realtors, solar pros, this is a great little video, and I encourage you all to record something similar as well. So last thing here, future trainings. Today at 12 p.m. Pacific, in about 45 minutes, there's always a consultant training every Tuesday. And then Thursdays, there's a new onboarding, which is pretty good for everyone that's new, 12 o'clock Pacific or 5 o'clock Pacific on Thursdays, Powur On onboarding for newer people. And then Friday, guys, is pretty important. Last night we did Powur Hour. We explained why BNI. We had a global support business executive from BNI flew in to say why BNI. We had 26 people register saying they want to join BNI in the 1 hour. And so that was really cool. We're going to take it to Friday, the 17th at 11 a.m. Pacific. The calendar is being updated now. And we're going to show you how to use BNI, how to maximize BNI, take it from A to Z, 0 to 100, and get deals closed. Many of you have closed numerous deals from BNI. So if you're building teams, if you want your teammates on, if you want to close more deals yourself, BNI, I know Cynthia is in team networking groups. There's LaTip networking groups. So that's one of the ways I worked on some public speaking and sold 13 deals in 1 year alone from BNI. And then of course, Monday, the Powur Hour contest winners. And then just as a reminder, every Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific, JC and his team and his leaders like Robert and Lewis, they do a 9 a.m. training every Monday. And then of course, this weekly Tuesday team training, all in-person events. I know we have some New Jersey and Carolina events coming up very soon on solarcareerevent.com. All of this information and more is generally on powurcalendar.com. And with that, I will just again say big thank you to the leadership. Thank you, Cynthia. Again, Larsen, Mike, Robert, reach out to these pros, reach out to your leadership if you need additional support and guidance. Let me go ahead and stop recording.